It's nice to see you again. Sorry for my voice, today I'm a bit sick, but I'm still making this video. That means that you also have to make an effort, push yourself and start preparing for the writing part. Today we're going to talk about the essay. Let's roll. At the end of the day, you always have to write an essay, and you actually always have to evaluate the positive and negative aspects of a certain issue. And so that means that it doesn't actually matter what level you're going for, you have to master the skill of writing essays of that kind in general. Normally, when writing an essay, people have a trouble with not knowing what to write, with the structure, with the time management. And then because of that, there are a couple of mistakes that add up to that, which are grammar mistakes. And you can divide them into two categories. One category is I simply don't know how to write something, and another category is, well, I made that mistake because I had to hurry or something. As for not knowing what to write, there is another mistake that leads to that, which is not having enough words, because when you don't know what to write, you simply don't get the words right. I already explained on how to train your time management skills for an exam like this in my other video, also about Goethe Zertifikat, where you have to certificate, that was so Denglish, in your Goethe Zertifikat, where I explain how to write the letter, right, or an email. You can check it out, but in short words, basically what you have to do, you have to set a timer and then you don't stop it until you finish writing the task. That means all the Googling, all the translating, looking up words is included. Why? Because you need to know how much time you would normally have to spend on that thinking. Because when you are at the exam, you no longer have the opportunity to actually Google something, but you would still sit there blank and not knowing what to write. And and then sometimes you feel like, oh well, maybe if I sit for 5 more minutes, the enlightenment will come to me and I will actually know what to write. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to know what to write before you actually come to the exam. That means that all of these time pauses have to be included so that you feel bad about that, so that writing takes me really long, or I'm good at writing, so that you see how much actual time it takes you. And then we transition to another point, like, what is your issue? Is your issue that you don't know what to write and that's why it takes you long, because you have to kind of come up with something? Or is your issue simply that you write for way too long? That is because these are two different things and they are trained separately. Because if your problem is that you don't know what to write, we go back to that. And then if your problem is that you simply write too long, what you do is actually pretty simple. You first write your 5 essays at the same tempo you always do, but then you start setting a timer for half an hour or 40 minutes, and you make sure that you manage to finish your essays within that time. If you still don't, that means you're not trying hard enough. That means you have to take one sample essay that you already wrote and try to reduce it and manage to do it within half an hour. You only have to keep the key points of your essay and use those ideas only. And then you will see that you actually managed to write it in within 30 minutes. It's just that it is what you write, right? You have to only stick to the main idea. Okay, now, if your issue is that you don't know what to write, and that is not only your issue, and that is no longer a time management issue, it is that you no longer know what to write, right? In that case, it means you have to read more, you have to watch more, because the most common topics that you have in your Goethe Zertifikat exam, and actually in almost every language exam, are education, like going to the university, going to school, hobbies, like leisure time, maybe medicine, going to a doctor or something. I think medicine, energy, like green sources of energy, super common. And then like working, work-life balance, etc. And so these topics are most common, and you can actually find them on different news websites, German news websites. Like, I really recommend using authentic articles because Germans love to write about things like that. What I love about the German language is that the language that they use in their news, in their articles, is almost the same language they use every day. If you compare that to English, for example, the language you would see in articles would be a bit posh, a bit, Like, you can just see that the person did their best to sound nice, that they came up with certain ways of saying something. It's original. In German, you can't be original, but you still use constructions that almost everybody uses. And so that is good for you, because you can use this, if you read an article, you can use these constructions in your writing. Just steal them, copy paste them into your essay, and the examiner will think you're a god. It's more difficult for younger people, because younger people have less life experience, and so they cannot know everything that has been going on in the world, right? Older people, older adults already have that experience, they've heard something, so it's always easier for them to write from their own experience. For younger adults, that's not the case. That means that you have to actually cover those holes, and you have to watch or read something on these topics. And you have to, let's say, if you're a student, it's already easier for you to talk about education, right? Because you already have your own opinion formed on that topic, etc. But as for energy, maybe you don't know that much about that field. So that means you actually have to specifically go on YouTube and watch a video on green sources of energy. What is it? Advantages and disadvantages of green sources of energy. This way, you ensure that you actually cover the material, cover the vocabulary that you don't know. And now, how do you work with that? And now you have the idea of what green sources of energy are. Let's say you read an article, you have to work with the vocabulary used in that article. That means you create a PDF file or Word file, whatever, or you write them down. I used to write them down all the time. I mean, not the articles, but you choose some vocabulary from that article that refers to the same topic. Let's say if I say green sources of energy, the topical vocabulary would be hydro energy, solar energy, and then wind parks, etc. Like everything that sounds like terminology, sort of. And then you say produce energy, renewable sources of energy. All of that belongs to the same topic. So this is topical vocabulary, and you need to have this topical vocabulary to use in your writing. Why? Because this is what makes you cool, okay? You get points for that, basically. Because not everybody knows that. If you have a video, you can always go to the transcript, copy-paste it into ChatGPT and ask, give me topical vocabulary to this topic, And then it will do the same work for you. You don't know how much of that it can be. You have to choose the vocabulary that you personally will remember. You feel like you have to remember, maybe, because, if you have a word produce energy and you cannot replace it with anything else, you have to use that. So you have to learn that. But at the same time, there can be different expressions like, this plays a huge role, this plays a big role. So now you have to choose between huge or big, So now it's up to you what to prefer. Now you have that vocabulary. What you have to do is you have to force yourself to write, to use that vocabulary in your writing. Next time you get a topic to renewable energy, you try to use that vocabulary. And it's not even about you being original, it's more about you forcing yourself to use this vocabulary. And let's say you got nuclear energy, right? And you don't know much about that, but you know how to say produce energy. So you can just say, I am for nuclear energy because it produces green energy. And this way you show that you're a cool guy because you know this vocabulary, and nobody is gonna care about whether you are actually for or against it, okay? Basically, you have to do some research before writing on a certain topic. And so while you're in the preparation stage, you should spend more time doing that than actually writing, Why does it help you? It helps you overall to work with that vocabulary because you will see the same words in your reading part. Many people have difficulty working with the reading part because they simply don't understand what they are reading. The reason why they don't understand what they are reading is because they don't know the words. And now, if you learn these words connected to certain topics, when preparing for your writing part, you're also better prepared for your speaking part because these topics are always the same. You're also better prepared for the reading part because you will see the same words depending on the topic. You know what's fun? I actually wanted to start the video saying we got a beautiful desk behind us, but unfortunately we cannot use it because I don't have anything to wipe it with. But then I actually forgot about it, so I guess it doesn't matter. Right, now let's talk about the structure. A typical essay usually consists out of 4 paragraphs, and then you have the introduction, you have the conclusion at the end, and in between you have the main body. What does the main body consist of? That depends on your essay type. In Goethe Zertifikat, you almost always have to speak of the advantages and disadvantages of a certain topic or of a certain object, whatever. You also have to express your opinion, or you have to describe a situation in your homeland, or you have to give a prediction of how things will be. I recommend always going for 2 advantages and 1 disadvantage, or 2 disadvantages and 1 advantage, depending on what position you take. So why? Because you don't have an infinite amount of time, and 2, it's kind of easier to stick to that structure, because you also don't, like I said, you don't want to write too much, because it's your time. The more you write, the longer you write, no matter how fast you do it. And you still want to check for it. And so like, it doesn't matter, you can still get enough points just by writing enough. The most important thing is the structure and the argumentation. So that means if you have 4 paragraphs, you have 4 points to consider. First, you start with the introduction. Then comes the pro-argument, why you're for something, and then the contra-argument, and then the conclusion. If you have to express your opinion or describe a situation in your homeland, you can do it in either of points. For example, if you support something, you say, in my homeland it is done the same way and I think it's great. So you even do both points. You don't actually have to make it a separate paragraph, just use it logically. You might have noticed one thing here. Your essay writing is similar to the speaking part in Goethe Zertifikat. In the speaking part, you always have to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of a certain thing. And in your writing part, you also have to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of a certain thing. That means if you're well prepared for one part, you're also well prepared for another part. Yes, speaking and writing are different skills. But as for vocabulary that you have to use, it's the same. Right? As for the structure that you have to use, it's the same. I like to use one template and I always give it to my students, and I used to use it myself when I had to prepare for the exam. Eine der wichtigsten Fragen, worüber es heutzutage immer wieder diskutiert wird, ist die Frage ob. And here you formulate your topic into a question. Well, not really a question, right? Das Thema von bla bla ist heutzutage sehr aktuell, weil, and then you explain why. Aber es hat sowohl Vorteile als auch Nachteile. And why do you need to speak about the topic being up to date? Because you get more words, and it actually forces you to think about it deeper. And trust me, it will be easier for you. If you make yourself think why the topic is up to date, it will be easier for you to come up with arguments for and against it. And then you proceed to the next paragraph and say, der erste Vorteil besteht darin, dass blah, blah, blah. And then you speak of the first advantage. If you have one more, you say, der zweite Vorteil besteht darin, dass. So like I said, I recommend going with 2 advantages and 1 disadvantage. If you feel like you have nothing to write, then you go with 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage, but you have to have both if that's the topic. If the task wants you to have that. Okay. Then you use a beautiful phrase to make a transition to the disadvantages, and you say, aber natürlich hat jede Medaille 2 Seiten und das Thema ist keine Ausnahme und die Kehrseite von irgendwas ist blah blah blah. And since you also have to describe a situation in your homeland, you can either do it when you describe the advantages or when you describe the disadvantages, doesn't matter. Die Situation in meinem Heimatland sieht so aus, oder sieht ähnlich aus, oder sieht anders aus. Blah, blah. And then you actually describe it, right? You can also include your opinion here. Meiner Meinung nach, blah, blah. Please use phrases that you know how to use. Please use phrases that you feel comfortable with. I know you can find a lot of beautiful phrases on the internet, but you only need 1 for each. Like for 1 disadvantage, for 1 advantage, maximum 2, right? And then, and as for the situation in your homeland, please make sure if you say, die Situation in meinem Heimatland sieht ähnlich aus oder sieht anders aus, you have to actually say why, because it's not enough to just say, oh yeah, it's different, or yeah, it's the same, and that's it. No, this is not enough. You actually have to do some argumentation, and actually say why it's different or why it's the same. And then at the end you say, you write your conclusion and you say, schließlich lässt sich sagen, dass, blah blah. And you basically sum up what you've said before. I know many people have a trouble writing conclusions because they don't understand how do I sum up, it's literally the same. Yeah, but I really like German for its flexibility, for its grammatical flexibility. You can use different parts of speech, and then this way you don't actually I mean, yeah, you do repeat, technically you do repeat what you're saying, but you do it in a different way. And that's what they want from you, right? So if you had a verb in your advantage, right? Now you can make it to a noun and use that instead, and this way you will actually get a lot more points because not everybody can do that. But anyway, but you don't have to do that. My key point here, that to write a conclusion you have to give the same idea you used when argumenting your advantage, but you have to reduce it to one sentence. And if you reduce each paragraph to one sentence, you will have your conclusion. In the beginning, I mentioned another problem. Many people don't know how to write, how to get enough words. And to fight with that, I always recommend that just insert because in almost every sentence you've got. There are two reasons to do that. First of all, it helps you to get more words because when you say because, it forces you to write more. But second of all, argumentation is super important. Let's say if it says weigh the advantages and disadvantages of something, it's not enough to just say, oh, doing sports is good because you get a nice body. You can eat well, you get disciplined, blah blah. You can list so many positive things, but it's not gonna be good. It's actually a lot better to have to list just one thing, but argument it so well that you will make me believe it. You will make me want to do sports, you know. So argumentation is actually the key. That's why I'm saying it's enough to have just one argument for and against, just argument it well. The best way to argument it is actually by saying because, or you can say aus diesem Grund or aus dem Grund, blah blah. Like there are multiple ways to do it, but basically if you say because, you get the most words. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you stayed till the end, and write in the comments what topic you would like me to describe next. And I wish you luck in your exam.